Senator Wachowski, for what purpose?
Mr. President, I'd like to request unanimous consent that we move to item number 43, SB 308.
Without objection.
This is the second SB 308 of my three
Senator
bills.
Wachowski?
Oh,
Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 308 by Senator Wachowski, an act relating to bankruptcy.
thank you, Mr. President. This is the second of my package of economic equality and financial stability bills, and it'll make some long-needed, necessary, and meaningful updates to the California bankruptcy laws. I don't know if people know that when most of us will never have to file bankruptcy and will never be faced with that, but nearly 73% of filers that go into bankruptcy are earning less than $40,000 a year, and almost all of those are married and trying to support their family. Basically, this bill it raises the exemption figure, which takes into account the values of homes here in California. The median family home in the whole state of California is $440,000. This will raise the exemption to $300,000. In today's San Jose Mercury News, they indicated that the average home in San Mateo County, which my colleague from the Peninsula represents, is $1.1 million, and in San Jose, it's $905,000. Colleagues, the exemption is still too low at $300,000 for most of us from San Diego or Los Angeles or the Bay Area, but it's a meaningful exemption for some of the people throughout the state. Additionally, it makes some other changes to the exemption codes, but overall, it allows debtors to have a much better chance of being self-sufficient and avoiding a continual spiral of debt, and I urge and I vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen? Anderson? No. Bates? No. Bell? Aye. Berryhill? No. Block? Cannella? De Leon? Aye. Fuller? No. Gaines? No. Galgioni? Hall? Aye. Hancock? Hernandez? Aye. Hertzberg? Aye. Hill? Aye. Hueso? Aye. Huff? No. Jackson? Aye. Lara? Leno? Aye. Leyva? Aye. Liu? Aye. McGuire? Aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mitchell? Aye. Monning? Aye. Morlock? No. Morrell? No. Wynn? No. Nielsen? No. Pan? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Roth? Runner? No. Stone? No. Vidak? No. Wachowski? Aye. Wolk? Wolk, aye.
Call the absent members.
Allen? Block? Aye. Cannella? Galgioni? Hancock? Aye. Lara? Aye. Roth? Aye.
Ayes 23, noes 13. The measure passes. Senator Wachowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to go back to item number 13, SB 641, which
Without objection. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 641 by Senator Wachowski, an act relating to debt buying.
Senator Wachowski.
Mr. President, this is the third and final bill of my economic equality and financial stability package. It allows a consumer to have her day in court when she never received actual notice. This is a bill narrowly tailored for a specific problem where people get a default judgment, they never know that they were served, and under penalty of perjury, they're able to go back into court and ask the court for their day, or ask for an opportunity to have the merits of the case heard. Sometimes years after the actual debt has been incurred, maybe 9 or 10 years, the consumer finally finds out that a attempt is being made to collect it because they are being, not from the creditor, but from their employer because their wages are being garnished. Unfortunately, some of these debts are not the debtor's debts. Often they are, and often that garnishment is righteous and they should be collected. But what we want to do is allow those debtors that don't believe that they owe the debt or they were never received notice to actually go in court. Currently, the law bars them from having their day in court. It's a 2-year statute of limitation, and this will carve out an exception for those few persons. I urge and I vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. SB 233 passed off this floor with a 36-0 vote, a bipartisan vote, related to consumer debt that was sold on or after January 1st of 2014. Mostly banks that have tried to recover debt and have received a default judgment, meaning the person or the entity being sued did not answer the complaint, sell the debt at a discount often to a collection agency that then pursues the debt. There are more default judgments in collection cases brought by debt buyers against consumers than there are in any other type of case. The Federal Trade Commission has called for state legislation to deal with the frequency of default judgments and the lack of notice provided to defendants in debt collection lawsuits brought by debt buyers. Prior to the passage of SB 233, debt buyers were not required to provide the court with any evidence that the defendant being sued actually owed the debt, which was appropriately addressed and corrected. Currently, it is very difficult to set aside a default judgment of more than 2 years. Many debt collectors purposely wait for the 2-year period to end so that they can follow through with wage garnishments. And I have to ask, where is the due process with this process? But let me also opine that anyone that has legitimately borrowed money and has signed the appropriate promissory documents should pay their debts. Second, it is only appropriate and transparent that the party being sued be noticed of the pending legal action and, when required or necessary, to go to court to defend the legitimacy of the claim before garnishments can occur. There may be legitimate reasons why a complaint filed against a person or entity would go unanswered, resulting in a default judgment. The debtor may not have had the correct address. The debtor did not have the right person. I'll give you an example. My office was called in Murrieta wanting to know where to find me because I had outstanding debt on my education. And I said to my staff, give me the phone number. I graduated 34 years ago, and if they're after me for the debt now, I'd hate to know what the interest on it would be. And certainly I called, and of course there's more than one Jeff Stone in the country. They asked for the last 4 digits of my Social Security number and discovered that I wasn't the Jeff Stone that they were seeking. However, they could have gone through the process and went through the wage garnishment issues, and I would have to hire an attorney, and I would have to try to protect myself. And certainly, during the 2007 real estate bust, there were many that were displaced with their homes without any kind of forwarding address, or we might have military reserves that were called to duty that could not be found, or illnesses where people may have been hospitalized. SB 641 will simply allow a consumer in limited circumstances to file a motion to set aside a default judgment that is more than 2 years old so the consumer can challenge the validity of the debt in court. I support this due process that ensures a debt collector does not inappropriately collect on a debt a person simply does not owe. Many targets of these companies may be low to moderate income people with limited legal knowledge or financial wherewithal and still deserve the right to stop a collection of a debt that may not have belonged to them. For these reasons, I urge and I vote.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Senator Jackson.
Yes, very briefly, as the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, I want to thank Senator Stone for pointing out this is just a basic issue of due process. In this country, you have a right to know when you're being sued. All this bill says is if you didn't get that knowledge and suddenly your wages are being garnished or there is an attack on your credit, you have the right to come in and to say, hey, folks, I think you've got the wrong person. Now, I look around, Jeff Stone, that's not that uncommon a name. Bob Huff, that isn't that uncommon a name. Hannah Beth Jackson is a relatively uncommon name. But the fact of the matter is that this could happen to each and every one of us. It happens to a lot of people. This just gives them the opportunity to go into court under the fundamental principle of due process and to challenge that on the basis that they've got the wrong person. With that, I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Senator Wachowski, would you like to close on this item?
Mr. President, I'd like to thank the gentleman from Riverside and the gentlewoman from Santa Barbara and remind members that this is for both men and women that may be able to set aside this default judgment. And I urge and I vote.
Thank you. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. No. Bates. No. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. No. Block. Canella. Aye. De Leon. Aye. Fuller. No. Gaines. No. Galgioni. I. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Wisso. I. Huff. I. Jackson. I. Lada. I. Leno. I. Leva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. No. Morrell. No. Wynn. No. Nielsen. No. Pan. I. Pavley. I. Roth. I. Runner. No. Stone. I. Vidak. I. Wachowski. I. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Call the absent members.
Block. Aye.
Ayes 29, noes 10. The measure passes. Members, we are back on file item 31. Senator Hancock. Pass. File item 32, Senator Hill. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 633 by Senator Hill and acroling to false advertising.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, SB 633, co-authored by Senate President Pro Tem De Leon, revises California's Made in the USA labeling standard to reflect today's global economy, to which manufacturers use components from around the globe. The bill says that a manufacturer may label a product as made in the USA when up to 5%, and in some cases up to 10% of the product contains parts from outside the United States. All 49 other states similarly allow for a negligible amount of parts from outside the U.S. The bill strikes a reasonable balance between protecting consumers and allowing a small subset of California businesses the flexibility needed to label as made in the USA. I greatly appreciate working collaboratively with Senator Jackson, the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and the Pro Tem on this bill. SB 633 is supported by the California Manufacturers and Technology Association, California retailers, and others, and has received unanimous bipartisan support.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there objection to utilizing our previous unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 39, no 0. The measure is adopted. Moving to file item 33, Senator Hill. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 658 by Senator Hill and acroling to automated external defibrillators.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is supported by so many organizations because it will lead to more AEDs in the community. Automatic external defibrillators are the most effective way to save cardiac arrest victims. Sudden cardiac arrest kills nearly 1,000 per day in the United States. Only 10% of victims who suffer a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital setting survive. The average response time for a 911 call is between 8 to 12 minutes. Each minute defibrillation is delayed, a person's chance of survival is reduced by about 10%. It's critical that we get more AEDs placed in all types of buildings and businesses around the state. One of the best ways to increase the number of AEDs is to update the AED liability immunity requirements that were established by this legislature in 1999. The requirements from the 1990s were based on the older AED technologies that didn't have voice commands, didn't have pre-connected shock pads, didn't have long-lasting batteries, and didn't have voice command CPR coaching. The new generation of AEDs are so simple and user-friendly that nearly anyone can successfully administer them without training or practice. They even have a built-in computer that monitors the heart rhythm of the cardiac arrest victim to determine if a shock should be administered or not. The bill requires building owners to ensure that batteries are checked, AEDs are maintained, tenants know where the AED is located, instructions are posted next to the device, and a demonstration is provided annually. A study by Johns Hopkins University found that Good Samaritan access to AEDs doubles survival from sudden heart attack. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, there have been no reports of AEDs harming users by bystanders. This bill will save lives, members.
Debate or discussion, members? Senator Stone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of SB 658 and applaud my friend and colleague, the senator from the coast, to support this bill. When I was a Temecula City Council member, we placed a lot of AEDs in our community, and I can tell you that they save lives, and they certainly should fall within the Good Samaritan laws of this country to make sure that anyone can utilize one of these devices that can and will save lives. And the Senator is absolutely correct that the technology today ensures that there's good oral instructions to make sure that they're used appropriately. They will not shock somebody that has a heartbeat, which is very important. And so the concerns about liability need to be diminished, and I applaud the Senator for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Any additional debate or discussion on this item? Senator Hill, would you like to close?
Respectfully ask for an aye vote, members. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, is there any objection to utilizing our unanimous roll call on this item? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 39, no 0, the measure is adopted. Moving to file item 34, Senator Hill. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 741 by Senator Hill, enacting to communications.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, SB 741 ensures there is transparency when police use devices that capture our cell phone data. Commonly known by the brand name Stingray, the devices are usually and easily portable and can find out who a person is calling, when the call is made, where the call is made from, and in some cases can even listen in on a phone conversation. SB 741 helps preserve core civil liberties by preventing local governments from acquiring these devices unless it's approved through a resolution or ordinance at a regularly scheduled public meeting where community members can comment. Some law enforcement groups oppose this bill, arguing that they should be allowed to make independent decisions about technology procurement. It's true that sheriffs are independently elected, but it's the Board of Supervisors that is in charge of appropriating the funds to purchase the equipment. That is their jurisdiction. Police chiefs, on the other hand, are not elected and work with the city manager and the city council on procurement. A sheriff or a police chief can decide what to purchase, but it's the elected officials that appropriate the money. As many of you know from your own experience in local government, that is the check and balance. SB 741 simply preserves this fundamental relationship. The bill has received unanimous bipartisan support and is supported by the California Newspaper Publishers Association, the Bay Area Civil Liberties Coalition, and numerous others.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there objection to utilizing our unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 39, no 0, the measure is adopted. Moving to file item 35, Senator Hall, not at his desk. File item 36, Senator Pan. Pass on file. File item 37, Senator Wachowski, not at his desk. File item 38, Senator Pavley. Pass on file. File item 39, Senator Block, if you prepared to take up this item. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 235 by Senator Block, enacting to consumer loans.
Senator Block.
Thank you, Mr. President. At present, it's easy for borrowers to get a payday loan in an amount of under $300, and it's easy for them to get a high interest rate installment loan in an amount greater than $2,500. But it's currently very difficult for borrowers who need access to credit to borrow between $300 and $2,500 at affordable interest rates. SB 235 tries to change that. SB 235 amends California's small dollar loan pilot program to increase the availability of responsible credit building loans. The bill allows finders who are licensed as financial service providers to do three things: disperse loan proceeds to borrowers, accept loan payments from borrowers, and provide loan-related disclosure documents to borrowers. SB 235 also gives pilot program lenders more flexibility to negotiate compensation agreements with their finders. By doing this, by amending California's small dollar loan pilot program, I'm trying to make it easier for low-income borrowers to obtain responsible loans in amounts between $300 and $2,500. SB 235 is sponsored by InSeed Corporation and supported by the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, Listo, Check Center, LendUp, and UTAC Software. The bill has received unanimous bipartisan support in committee, and I ask for your aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there objection to utilizing our unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 39, no 0, the measure is adopted. Moving to file item 40, Senator Cannella. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 284 by Senator Cannella, enacting relating to the practice of engineering and land surveying.
Senator Cannella.
Thank you, Mr. President. SB 284 extends the sunset date by 3 years established in 2010, allowing engineers and land surveyors to continue to form limited liability partnerships, extending the same flexibility to form limited liability partnerships as architects, will allow engineers and land surveyors to continue to contribute to business and job growth in our state. I'm pleased to have received unanimous bipartisan support for this bill, and I ask for an aye vote.
Debate or discussion on this item, members? Seeing and hearing none, is there objection to utilizing our unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 39, no 0. The measure passes. Moving to file item 41, Senator Block. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 285 by Senator Block, an act relating to pawnbrokers.
Senator Block.
Thank you, Mr. President. SB 285 increases the interest rate and fees that California pawnbrokers may charge on pawn loans of up to $2,500. Members, nearly all of us have pawn shops in our district, so we understand that pawnbrokers are small businesses. They provide jobs to our constituents, and they offer credit to those of our constituents who have very few places to turn when their spending needs are excessive. California's pawn industry is in decline. The current statutory caps on pawnbroker compensation are too low to offset the cost of doing business in California. Because of this, several pawn shops have shut down in recent years. The changes in SB 285 are intended to help the pawn industry survive in our state and serve those who need their help. SB 285, if it's enacted, it will change the compensation rates, bringing California from 48th in the country in terms of compensation for pawnbrokers, from 48th in the country all the way up to 47th in the country. So it is a fairly small change, but the pawnbrokers tell us that will help assure that California's pawn shops can stay in business. The bill is unopposed, received unanimous bipartisan support in committee. Ask for your aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to applaud my senator friend from Southern California coastal area and doing what he can to help keep businesses afloat in the state of California. I would love to see more of this type of activity on the floor, as we've seen businesses fly out of the state of California into other states, and I hope that we spend this much attention on other large-scale industries and manufacturers and provide the same kind of support. I applaud you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Members, debate or Senator Block, would you like to close?
Urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Members, is there any objection to utilizing our unanimous roll call on this item? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 39, no 0. The measure is adopted. Moving to file item 42, Senator Mendoza. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 300 by Senator Mendoza, an act relating to pawnbrokers.
Senator Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I'm here to present SB 300, which removes a competitive disadvantage for California pawnbrokers so that they can compete with a growing trend towards online pawnbroker lending. Unlike out-of-state pawnbrokers conducting online business inside of California, California-based pawnbrokers providing loans must obtain the thumbprint of the person pledging the property as collateral for the loan. SB 300 allows California-based pawnbrokers to conduct electronic pawnbroker transactions by replacing the thumbprint requirement with a new requirement that the loans be transferred into the bank account of the consumer requesting the loan. SB 300 has received unanimous support in both policy committees and has no opposition. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Members, debate or discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, is there objection to utilizing our unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none, ayes 39, no 0. The measure is adopted. Moving to file item 44, Senator Mendoza. Prepare to take up this item. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 331 by Senator Mendoza, an act relating to public contracts.
Senator Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I'm here to present SB 331, which requires local jurisdictions that establish transparency requirements for labor contracts to apply the same degree of transparency to other contracts for goods and services. Currently, labor management relations are governed by the Myers-Brown Act. However, some local governments have adopted COIN ordinances to promote transparency in labor negotiations, and that's great. This bill requires that a local jurisdiction that has adopted these transparency COIN ordinances, that this transparency requirement apply to all contracts valued over $50,000. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Members, a better discussion on this item. Senator Morlock.
Don't break it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Transparency is what is really needed in California, and it's what our taxpayers have been requesting and begging for, and even our academic community is saying we need more transparency. So civic openness in negotiations, COIN, was adopted by the city of Costa Mesa in Orange County to provide more visibility to negotiations with bargaining units. It is an incredible new tool that will allow the voters to see what is transpiring in negotiations and will also identify the costs of the items that are proposed. Colleagues trying to understand why we are in such debt to unfunded liabilities for pension plans and for retiree medical, you find that most of these discussions were negotiated in closed session with no voter input whatsoever before they were voted on. So this is something that can put things out in the open and provide a great tool for municipalities up and down this state. So now to select another transparency tool, the Civic Reporting Openness and Negotiations Efficiency Act, somehow cleverly referred to as CRONY, is an interesting idea. And I would posture that if it is good for just municipalities that adopted COIN, then it should be good for everyone in this state. So I find this a little petty. It's sort of a tactic to intimidate other governments that want to do better transparency, and I politely and courteously ask for a no vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Members, additional debate or discussion on this item? Senator Bates.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I too rise in opposition to this. It was adopted, COIN was adopted in Orange County to apply to contract negotiations with 8 bargaining units. CRONY, if adopted in Orange County, would apply to an average of over 2,700 contracts with amounts greater than $50,000. If the threshold were increased to $5 million, CRONY would still apply to over 500 contracts currently active with the county. It was adopted, COIN was adopted to provide transparency for labor contracts that can cost multiple millions of dollars. And I'd like to share with you, it was something that came to us as members of the board at that time from our constituency who believed that the negotiations that were underway with both the unions and the board were somehow surreptitious and not providing transparency. Yet we worked very carefully with our labor unions and tried to provide the information that we could to the constituency so they would understand that both parties in those negotiations were dealing very openly and very fairly and trying to come to something that was fair to both our taxpayers and certainly our workers. CRONY would provide the same level of scrutiny for thousands of small, everyday contracts, but requiring delays of 60 days before the board could approve them. This would effectively grind county operations to a standstill when you look at the kind of contracts that are currently in place and going forward would come under this kind of scrutiny. COIN was adopted after removing an onerous requirement that all conversations regarding labor negotiations between our board members and staff be removed. That is not included in CRONY and should be. Before this is approved, it really needs serious amendments so that we do not impact the operations of our county governments. And frankly, we're all for transparent openness so that our taxpayers understand exactly what we're doing. Therefore, having it apply across the board in this state is not a bad idea. I ask for your opposition. Thank you.
Members, additional debate or discussion on this item? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Mendoza, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, as my colleague mentioned, we all want transparency. And if these local governments want to create transparency in labor contracts only and not apply it to other contracts, it makes it unfair. If they want transparency, let's have transparency across the board. All your contracts over $50,000, let's go ahead and have that open, transparent look into what is going on in their local government if they choose to. And if these 6 local entities that want to continue to operate with the COIN ordinance, let's have that opportunity to see everything else that's being transparent in that same jurisdiction. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Anderson? No. Bates? No. Bell? Aye. Berryhill? No. Block? Canella? De Leon? Aye. Fuller? No. Gaines? Galgiani? Aye. Hall? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Hernandez? I. Hertzberg. Hill. I. Weso. Huff. No. Jackson. I. Lutta. I. Leno. I. Leva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. No. Morrell. No. Wynn. No. Nilsson. Pan. I. Pavley. I. Roth. Runner. No. Stone. No. Vidak. No. Wachowski. I. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Call the absent members.
Weso, aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. Gaines. No. Hertzberg. Aye. Nilsson. No. Roth. No.
Ayes 25, noes 14. The measure passes. Moving to file item 45, Senator Jackson. Pass on file. File item 46, Senator Wachowski. Pass on file. File item 47, Senator Mendoza. Secretary, please read.